All right, guys, I want to discuss the very final stages of what I have to go through, all right, to complete the process of building these guitars. I call this like the final setup. And kind of the more time you spend on the final setup, taking your time and really paying attention to the instrument, the better off the instrument is going to be. So I like to take like about a week to actually dial these things in. And what I mean by dialing these things in is a whole bunch of things. So number one, put the strings on and tune them up to whatever key you're going to be in primarily most of the time. Tune it up and then just let the string set. Go ahead and stretch the strings out, intonate it, and then kind of let the neck kind of like settle into where it wants to be. Because these guitars have no truss rod, there's going to be some give on the neck here. All right, so when I build these guitars, right, I kind of sight the neck, right, and I kind of sight the wood, and I kind of determine how the wood is going to behave under tension. And so if there's like a little bit of a back bow, I'm going to put that back bow on the backside, knowing that the strings are going to be pulling that thing up. So that's going to lengthen the life of the instrument, and you have more budget for like higher tunings later on, because you'll be able to put more tension on the neck, right? So having a straight neck is very, very, very important, in my opinion. Okay, so now that the neck is straight as it's going to be, right, then we're going to determine the height of what this saddle here needs to be, right, in order to give me the exact string height action right here at the 12th fret. Now everybody's different. Some people like high action because they want to play with the slide and not bang on the frets. Some people like low action so that they can, play speed licks and play fast. There's a whole bunch of reasons why people like the strings that they do and the action that they do. I like a medium action. Okay, I like to be able to play, hit the strings with my frets and bend, and I also like to play with the slide. So, and I use medium gauge strings typically. These are the A string, D string, and G string of a medium acoustic set of gauge of strings. They're all wound strings. And on this particular guitar, I tuned it up EBE, but I noticed that I was getting some buzzing down here. And so I realized, hey, that all I need to do is crank up the tuning a little bit, get more tension on the neck, and I can start getting rid of that buzz. That way I don't have to sand down the back of the bottom of the saddle. Does that make sense? So I'm kind of like using time, right? Knowing kind of where this neck is going to land under tension. Okay, so once I do that, once I realize that the neck is pretty much stable for the tuning that I'm going to be in, then I fine tune the position of this saddle. Okay, this is very, very, very important. And notice how it's at an angle there, right there. Okay, see how it's at an angle? The thicker the string, the further back it is. The thinner the string, the more angled it's going to be, right? This in this direction here. And that has to do with physics and science and math and harmonics and all that stuff. The bottom line is that we want the harmonics to line up with the frets. Okay, that's important. Now, if you know that this here is a just intonated fretboard, in other words, I moved the frets to be specific in alignment with where the harmonics exist in reality on the strings, and that's a whole different topic, okay? That has nothing to do with it. That's just this instrument, and that's called just intonation, right? But you do want to intonate this thing here so that the 12th fret harmonic lines up exactly over the 12th fret. And I also like to double check in other places, like up here at the, make sure that harmonic and the note is the same as well up here, all the way up at the 19th fret. So, now that we've got it under tension and we got it tuned up to the key that we're going to be in, we have the intonation fine set, then we're going to start playing it. And as we play it, we're listening, discerning to find out, is that string playing a tune all the way up and down the neck, right? Are there any adjustments that need to be made? And so I have a couple of things that I play over and over again because I know exactly how they're supposed to sound. And so I will play these riffs, and you've heard me play them probably a dozen times. Just kind of a chromatic walk down, double finger from the 12th fret. So I am actually tuned G, D, G. I had to tune this one up again because I wanted to get no buzzing and I have a straight neck. So this one here, I had to put more tension on it than I do normally. Now that the neck is coming up, I'll probably be able to relax the tension down to EBE. So that's part of the dial-in process. Okay, so I'm going to play this chromatic scale. And again, I'm listening. I listen, and if I hear a note that's like flat or sharp, then I will revisit this guy. And if I'm coming up here and it's starting to sound flat, then I need to shorten this thing, and I bring it this way to shorten it to make those notes up here sound in tune. Now, if I'm coming up here and it's starting to sound sharp, well, then I need to lengthen this thing here this way so that when I'm coming up here, the notes sound in tune. Does that make sense? If I'm playing up here and I'm sounding a little bit flat, I need to raise this thing up. If I'm coming up here and I'm playing and it sounds a little bit sharp, I need to, and again, these are subtle movements about the width of a dime or the width of a nickel maybe. That's how barely you're going to like tilt it. And sometimes you'll find that as I'm only coming up here, only on one side of the thing. This one here, this string is fine, right? But this note here is the one that's getting sharp or flat. Then you kind of tilt it, right? So that you're only tilting the one that you need to. Okay, so these are all part of the fine-tune process of making sure that this instrument plays all the way up and down the neck in tune all the time. So take the extra time and pay close attention to these tiny little details, because in the end, the final product is just the summation of all these tiny little details all along the way from the beginning to the end. This final setup is the most important detail that you can't overlook, is setting up the final intonation on an absolutely perfectly straight neck, right? Double check, tune, make sure you're in perfect tune, play, and listen. Are you sharp, or are you flat? Are you sharp, or are you flat? And dial that bad boy in there so pretty soon you're like, man, every chord sounds sweet all up and down the neck, no matter what. And then you can say, okay, this thing is dialed in, man. All right, that's it. Later.